So objective and the topics for this session will be to understand the PMP certification process, to learn the best practices of project management as per PMBOK, to apply the project manager's experience and knowledge for passing PMP exam, and be able to implement the learning from PMBOK in day-to-day PMP activities. So in this session we will be learning introduction to PMP, PMI, PMBOK, eligibility criteria, and then exam fee, exam format, and then basic concepts about what projects are, and what is the program, and how do we manage, what is project management all about. So that is what we're going to cover in this session today. Eligibility criteria, there are two categories. So the first category, that is category 1, you need to have a degree, that is global equivalent university degree, plus 35 contact hours from any REP. You're going to get that from kernel training after you complete the session. I mean 4-day session. If you complete, you're going to get these 35 contact hours. Those are 35 PDUs. And experience you require for writing PMP exam is, you need to have 4,500 hours of project management experience. That is mandatory. You need to have that experience. That is 4,500 hours of project management experience, which comes around at least 3 years of project management experience within last 8 years. And the experience should be non-overlapping project experience. That is, if you're doing those projects, I mean, if suppose you start a project in January and the project is ending in June, so you can only show one project experience for in PMP form. All right. The second criteria, that is, second category for PMP, writing PMP exam, you need to have high school graduate and plus 35 contact hours. That is again from REP. That is a REP registered education provider, which you're going to get from kernel training once you are done with 4 days training. And experience you require, if you're a high school graduate, you require 7,500 hours of project management experience. That is 5 years of project management experience within last 8 years. And then again, the project experience should be non-overlapping. It should not be overlapping. All right. Now, certification process. Before starting with certification process, let me tell you about PMP, PMI, what all PMP and PMI is about. So PMI stands for Project Management Institute, which is the most prominent body and the world's leading not-for-profit professional membership association for projects, for programs, and for portfolio management profession. It was founded in 1969. And it has an army of certified professionals working across different industries. And the PMI provides certifications like PMP, CAPM, PMI, ACP, risk management, scheduling management, program management, and so on. There are different certification. You can go for it as per your requirement. Plus, for clearing PMP, you need to read PMBOK 5th edition, which is there in the market, which was released in 2013. You need to go through that, and PMBOK has been considered as the most comprehensive guide to acquire knowledge in the project management, where all methods, processes, process groups, knowledge areas are predefined by PMI. You need to go through PMBOK for clearing PMP exam. Now, certification process. PMP credentials are valid for 3 years. Once you clear PMP, once you have PMP certified, those credentials are only valid for 3 years. Then in the period of 3 years, you need to accumulate 60 PDUs, and once you have 60 PDUs, your PMP credentials will be renewed for next 3 years. So there is a process for that. Then membership, PMI membership, you can also see, without membership also you can write PMP exam, but it's better to be a PMI member, which membership fee is for $129, which is for 1 year, and you can renew every year. If you're a member, there are multiple discounts given by PMI, and like for exam also there is a discount, plus if you need to reappear in the exam, and if suppose there are multiple videos and webinars at PMI site, you can go through those and accumulate 60 PDUs also. So those are the benefits of being a PMI member. Application, once you download the application from PMI site, you can fill up the form and then you can submit the application form online at pmi.org. And there's a complete process for application. I mean, as I said, you need to go through those eligibility criteria. If you suppose, let's think about, I mean, if you're a if you have a degree and plus you have 35 contact hours plus 4,500 hours of project experience, you can fill up, you can show your experience, project experience in the form. You need to divide your 4,500 hours of experience into all 5 process groups. What are those 5 process groups? I'm going to tell you later in this session only. So you need to divide this 4,500 hours of project management experience in all 5 process groups, and then you need to you need to tell you what all you have done on the project. So you need to mention every detail about the projects you have completed in the form, plus you need to mention from where you got these 35 contact hours. So once you're done with the form, once you fill up the form, you can submit the form online, and that's the basic thing about the form. I mean, you can submit the form online. Your application is basically you are documenting what kind of projects you have worked on, and PMI, they are looking for what methodologies you have used on the projects, what are the things, I mean, in the PMBOK you have used, like nature of techniques, your processes related to project management, and then experience in all 5 process group, whether you have it or not. That's the reason you require these 4,500 hours of project experience. Sorry, the previous slide. So that's the reason the PMI is looking for 4,500 hours of project management experience before writing PMP exam. All right. When you submit the form online, application form online, it takes 3 to 5 days, working days, and PMI going to send you after in these 3 to 5 working days. PMI is going to send you an email asking you to proceed for you can submit the fee and all, but there are some applications which are randomly selected for auditing. So once you submit the fee, your application may get selected for auditing too. Auditing is basically it's a random selection, and they go through all the details you have provided to PMI about your project experience. So you need to be very careful. Please do not give any fake information in your form. Plus, if suppose your form gets selected for auditing, then PMI is going to ask you more details about the projects you have completed. You need to provide hard copies, which is endorsed by your project director, and then you need to provide all those details to PMI. If suppose your form is not selected for auditing, then PMI is going to send you the eligibility ID, and the day you get the eligibility ID, from that day you have 1 year to write exam. You can schedule exam in any prometric center which is which is near to you. You can schedule exam and you can write exam. All right. Okay. Now about the exam, there are 200 questions on exams. There are 200 multiple choice questions with 4 options. So exam format is for 4 hours. You can take break when required. You have to plan strategically, because you need to answer 200 questions into 40 minutes. So you need to plan strategically. Now you will have 15 minutes before exam. Those are known as actually those 15 minutes are for PMP test method. You can utilize that 15 minutes in writing all processes and tools and techniques. You're going to get a notepad. You can write those techniques there. All formulas also you can note down. There will be 200 questions, and in which 175 questions, as I said, 25 questions are considered pre-test questions. You can see in the slide. So 175 questions will be evaluated for award of PMP. So 175 questions you will be evaluated for award of PMP, plus 25 questions will be pre-test questions which are not awarded for PMP. Those are pre-test questions, and you're not going to score any points in these 25 questions. So these are basically future PMP exam questions. So you need to score at least 131 right answers out of 175. So that comes around 68 to 69%. You have 1 point for every right question. There is no penalty for wrong answer. So do not leave any question, answer all questions. Plus results will be made immediately available. Once you are done with the exam, result will be shown immediately after the exam, and results will be broken in all 5 process group and the performance. So you need to be very careful. You cannot, I mean, you need to focus on all 5 process group. You cannot ignore or you cannot neglect any of the knowledge area as well as the process group. So there are 5 process group. You need to focus on all 5 process group, because result will be shown in broken into 5 process groups. All right, now there are 10 knowledge areas which you're going to see in futures when you go for a complete session, 4-day session. So there are 10 knowledge areas plus 5 process groups, and PMI grades on each of the 5 process group. That is, the results, as I said, will be broken into 5 process group, and you're going to get the grading in all these 5 process group. The gradings will be like proficient, moderately proficient, and below proficient. So you need to get moderately or above. If you get below proficient in any of one knowledge area, or knowledge area, any of the one process group, you are failed. So you need to clear all 5 process groups. All right. Okay, so let me tell you more about exam. So PMP exam questions, as I said, you need to cover all 5 process groups. But exam 200 questions will be they will be from all 5 process group, that is initiation, planning, execution, monitoring and controlling, and closing. So all 5 process group will have questions, and there's a percentage which is defined by PMI. So there are you can go to PMI site and download the handbook from PMI site, and you can go through the percentage of questions from each process group. So those questions are placed randomly in all 5 process groups. So highest percent of questions are from execution, planning and monitoring and controlling. But as I said, that doesn't mean that you will neglect other process groups. So you need to focus on all 5 process groups. But other process group like initiation and closing, those are easiest. So you can score well in these 5 process group. And number of questions are also more from percentage is more from initiation and closing too. So you need to focus on all 5 process group. All right. So that's about the exam. If you have any question, please unmute and ask. No? So we'll start with the basic concept of what a project is, plus what is project management, then what is a program, what program management is all about, then your constraints, what are the constraints, triple constraints. We're going to discuss that now in later half. Now, what is a project? So project, as per the book definition given in the book, it's a temporary endeavor undertaken to create a unique product, service, or result. A project is temporary, unique, has a definite start and end date, progressively elaborated, has specific time, cost, and performance requirement. So that is about the project. Projects are they are temporary in nature. The output is unique. That is unique product, service. Now let's talk. Once the project is finished, you have a unique product or service, that is the output, right? So if it's a service like ERP services where you need to configure, then training is provided, and then finally you hand it over to the customer. So that is your product, right? Now results are those are the services, right? Now results are are in some cases we are called mainly on the consulting engagement, where we have to give only feasibility study report. So that report is a result. It's not a product or a service, it's a result, right? So those are few examples of a project, and projects are temporary in nature. They have a unique output, product or service. It has a definite start and end date. They are progressively elaborate. Very, very important terms in PMBOK, progressively elaborated. So projects, they are progressively elaborated. When you work on the project, you come to know more about the constraints, about issues, about difficulties, and then you do planning. So you work on the project, and then when you face the issues and difficulties, you make changes, you plan more. So they are progressively elaborated, right? I'm going to explain these terms maybe later more in detail. Now, has specific time, cost, and performance requirements. So projects, as I said, they have a definite start and ending. They are temporary in nature, and once the objectives are met, or let's say the objectives are met or they cannot be met, or when the project is terminated, the project comes to an end. All right, so that is about the project. Now, what is project management? Once you know what is a project, projects, they are temporary in nature. The output is unique product or service result. Now, project management is actually applying your knowledge, your skills, and experience with all those tools and techniques which are predefined by PMI in the PMBOK. You're going to apply all those tools and techniques and processes to get the project objectives. That is what project management is all about. So managing the project, what you understand by managing the project is basically identifying the requirements and needs of the customer, then addressing those needs and expectations of the customers or stakeholders, and then very important part is communicating with the stakeholders. So throughout the project you need to communicate with the stakeholders. So basically what project management is all about, balancing the constraints, involving and interacting and communicating with the stakeholders, and then finally you have to the main output is the product which should satisfy the needs and the expectations of the customer, right? So you need to identify the requirements and address those needs and concerns and expectations of the stakeholders too. So that is what is project management all about. So managing a project includes scheduling, identifying requirements, balancing project constraints. So those constraints are, there are 6 constraints as per PMBOK, and there are triple constraints like scope, time and cost, and 6 constraints are scope, time, cost, quality, risk and resources, which are there in the PMBOK. If you go through PMBOK 5th edition, you'll find these terms there. Now, addressing the concerns and expectations of the stakeholders, as I said, you need to identify the requirements first, then address the needs and concerns and expectations of the stakeholders, and basically you need to continuously involve the stakeholders on the project, so that if suppose there are any changes in the needs and expectations of the stakeholders, you get to know in initial stages only, right? So that is basically what project management is all about. So identifying the requirements, address needs and expectations, then communicating continuously throughout the project life cycle with the stakeholders is project management. Now, what is the role of the project manager? So as a project manager, you need to have all these things in you. Like project manager is wearing different hats. He has to be a good integrator. He has to be a very good communicator. He should know I mean, he should know how to communicate. I mean, he should continuously communicate. 90% of the time he is communicating with the stakeholders and all, right, with team members. So managing the project. So he should have complete knowledge about the project management. Then he should know how to integrate, then how to manage the project. Then communication is very important. These are the different hats he is wearing. So PM needs to have knowledge on project management, skills like leadership, team building, motivational skills, communication, decision-making skills, and conflict management. So these are basic generic management skills and professional skills. So the project manager should have all these skills in him to manage a project. Now, what is a program? Once you know what is a project, what project management is all about, so you need to understand what a program is. A program is a group of related projects managed in a coordinated way to obtain benefits and control, not available from managing them individually. So remember, very important term for program, it's group of related projects. All right, so program consists of a series of related and interdependent projects that meets the objective, meets an objective, right? Programs can be grouped like within a portfolio, and the project may or may not be a part of a program. So very important for exam, project may or may not be a part of a program, but program will always have projects. All right, so now I'll give you one small example. Example given here in the slide is building a shopping mall. So excavation, interior design, facilities, store placement, all these are different projects which come under one program. So let's say in program management, developing a village community for living. So that's a program, and there will be like multiple projects within this program, like your housing construction projects, water supply, education institutes, parks and recreational activities, places. All these are different projects which come under one program. All right, and all are related or interdependent on each other. Okay, each project has its own project manager who reports to a program manager. So program manager is managing, handling all the projects. Now, portfolio. What is a portfolio? So program are group of related projects. Now portfolio is basically total pool of projects and programs. Alright, so collection of projects and programs that is grouped together to facilitate effective management of work to meet strategic business objectives is portfolio management. So collection to complete total pool of projects and programs is a portfolio. The projects and programs here in portfolio may not be related or interdependent on each other. Alright, so example given in the slide is security portfolio, contains program for antivirus and online. So you can go through this example. So you need to have 4,500 hours of project experience for PMP certification. If you do not have that experience, you cannot write exam. So that is mandatory. All right. Okay. So I was on portfolio management. What portfolio is. So portfolio, as I said, is a total. All right, Khan. If you have any questions, just let me know. Okay. So portfolio is total pool of projects and programs in a is a portfolio, right? Okay, so we'll go to our next slide. If you have questions, just let me know. Okay, now what is program management? What are programs? Programs and portfolio we have discussed, right? Now, once we know program, what program is, what program management is, what portfolio is, what portfolio management is, we need to understand what operations, how they are different from, how projects are different from operations, right? So now very important, which is very important for exam also, we need to understand the difference between, the operations and projects, right? So operations are permanent feature and they remain until they are changed. It's very important. Just remember this. Operations, they are permanent in nature, and if you need to bring any changes. One second, there is a question. Just give me a second, please. Yeah, Naren, if you do not have experience, then you cannot write. See, as I said, 4,500 hours. You are MBA, that's fine, but then you need to have experience, project management experience. That is mandatory requirement for writing PMP exam. All right. If you do not have experience, you cannot. You need to show your experience, your project experience in the form. So that is like 3 years, minimum 3 years of experience you need to have. That comes around 4,500 hours of project experience. If you are a fresher, then you need to gain some experience first, and then maybe after that you can come and yeah. So as I said, there is one more certification provided by PMI, that is CAPM. So if you do not have experience, you can go for CAPM. Right? Just go to PMI site, pmi.org, download handbook from there. You can easily find out. See, if you do not have experience, still you can go for certification, that is CAPM certification, which is provided by PMI only. For all those people who are, all those who have no experience in project management, for them there is another certification which is CAPM certification. All right. But PMP, you need to, that is a mandatory requirement, you need to have 4,500 hours of project experience. All right, Naren? Okay. Any question? All right, so we'll start with operations. So I was telling you about the difference between operation and projects. Operations are permanent feature, as I said, and if suppose any changes you need to bring, so the change in operation will be only brought by a project. So projects are different from operations. Operations consist of ongoing repetitive work like production, support services, claim processing, monthly payroll, verification of new application and all. So those are ongoing process, right? And here also see examples are given. So these are ongoing process, and they are not temporary in nature. Projects are temporary in nature. All right, so that's a basic difference between operation and projects. And an easy example I like to give you here is like creating a car prototype is a project, right? But manufacturing car is an ongoing process. That is an operation. Okay, so by this example, I think you'll understand easily. So operations and projects is a basic, there's a difference, so you need to understand that. And for example, now definition given, what in PMBOK is, what is operation management? Organization, function performing ongoing execution of activities that produce the same product or provide repetitive services, right? Are operations, like production support, accounting, cleaning services. Those are operations. All right, any questions so far? Okay, now we discussed about what a project is, what project management is. So as I said, project management is applying your knowledge, skills, all those soft skills, generic management skills you need to apply on projects to get the project objectives, right? And there are tools and techniques and processes which are predefined in PMBOK. We need, if you follow those tools and techniques, if you apply those tools and techniques, if you follow those processes, you can achieve project objectives, right? So that is what project management is all about, right? Now, there are constraints. There are 6 constraints, like scope, time, quality, cost, risk, and resources. But triple constraints, as I mentioned before, are scope, time, and cost. Now, what are triple constraints? Let me explain you that. Triple constraints are basically scope, time, and cost, which are related. Any change in any of the constraint will affect, will affect, but may affect the other constraints too, right? That is your triple constraint. So you need to understand that too before moving ahead. So triple constraints are scope, time, and cost. Let me tell you, like suppose if you add on more requirements on projects, right? Adding more requirements will definitely affect either time or cost. If suppose time and cost are again constrained, then where you going to compromise? Obviously on quality, right? So quality will be affected. So triple constraints, any changes in any of the constraint is going to affect the other constraint. Those are triple constraints, and there are other constraints too, like risk and resources. So 6 constraints as per PMBOK 5th edition. Now, balancing these constraints is what is our job. As a project manager, you need to know how to balance these constraints, how to manage stakeholders' expectations, needs, and concerns, and continuously you need to communicate. Project manager, very important thing, just remember, project manager need not be a technical person, right? But he needs to he should know what is, he should have complete knowledge about project management. He should know how to communicate with the stakeholders. So communication skills should be there. Then he should know how to manage these constraints, balance these constraints, right? So these things, these different hats project manager should be wearing, right? Now, who all are stakeholders? Person or organization, like customer, sponsor, performing organization, all those people who are affected or they perceive themselves to be affected by the project outcome are stakeholders. So that is here definition given is person or organization, like customer, sponsor, performing organization, or the public that is actively involved in the project. All those people who are actively involved in the project, whose interest may be positively or negatively affected by execution or completion of the project. So stakeholders, they are negative as well as positive. There are positive stakeholders who are actually supporting the project, who are leading the project. They want the project to be successful. There are negative stakeholders too, who are actually creating obstacles, who are actually not wanting the project to be completed, right? So those are negative stakeholders. So you need to understand who all are positive stakeholders on the project and negative stakeholders on the project. So initially when you start with the project, you need to have a project charter first. That is, what is the SOW, what is the requirement, what is the need of the project. And then first thing what on project we do is we need to identify all the stakeholders. Very important. So all positive and negative stakeholders we identify on project. So identify stakeholders is very important thing which we do on the project, which is in the initial stages only in the project. Then once you identify the stakeholders, why do you identify the stakeholders? To understand their needs and expectations, right? What are their requirements? What are their expectations from the project? So you need to understand their needs and expectations and concerns. And then once you know that, you need to manage them. You need to involve them so that even they can add value to the projects, right? So you need to involve those stakeholders on the project. Once you involve them, I mean, you need to, that is done continuously throughout the project life cycle, and then you that is done basically by communicating with them. So you need to communicate throughout the project life cycle. You need to communicate with the stakeholders. So very important topic, very important topic in PMBOK is stakeholder management. So basically you're managing stakeholders by communicating with them, by fulfilling their needs and expectations and requirements. All right. Okay, now there are, as I said, there are 5 process groups, right? So those 5 process groups are initiating process group, then planning process group, executing process group, monitoring and controlling process group, and closing process group. See, very important thing here to understand is when a project, let's say there is a single phase project, each phase. All right, Kader, that's good. Okay, so each phase is going to go through all these 5 process groups. So if it's a multi-phase project, then each phase is going to go through all these 5 process groups. And if it's a single phase project, then you start with initiating process group. That is when you start the project by developing a project charter. And then once the objectives are met, you close the project. So these are 5 process groups which each phase or each project will have, right? So initiating process group, that is the initial first process group, occurs at the beginning of the project and at the beginning of each phase for large projects. So as I said, if it's a single phase project, one project will have all 5 process groups. And if it's a multi-phase project, if it's a large project, you need to divide that project into different phases, right? So each phase is going to have all these 5 process groups, right? So initiating process group basically is when you start the project, you need to develop a project charter. So processes performed to define a new project or a new phase of an existing project by obtaining authorization to start the project or a phase. So when you start the project, you need to have a authorization. That is, you develop a project charter where the project charter is an authorized document which gives authority to the project manager to work or to assign resources on the project. So developing a project charter which is signed and approved, which is actually a authorization document which gives authority to project manager to work on project, is very important. So developing project charter, there are a few inputs. See, every process, there are 47 processes and there are 10 knowledge areas in PMP and PMBOK. So all 47 processes, there will be few inputs and there will be like tools and techniques which you apply, and then there will be some outputs from each process, and outputs from every process will be input to other processes. So that's the reason it is said the projects are, as per PMBOK, projects are iterative in nature. They are progressively elaborated. Outcome from each process is input to the other process, except first and the last process. That is initiating. So in initiating, there are inputs, but inputs are basically coming from maybe stakeholders, from sponsor. So those inputs are SOW, business case, your agreements, all those are inputs to project charter, and then you need to develop a project charter. As per PMBOK, project charter is a very, very important document. If you do not have a project charter, you are not authorized to assign resources on project. You should not start the project. I mean, you should not start working on the project as a project manager. All right, you should say strictly no. So you need to have a project charter before starting your project, before assigning resources to the project. All right, so project charter is very important process where inputs are all those SOW which are provided by your stakeholders, customer, and then your business case, that is the requirement need of the project, whether we should go for that project or not. The business case actually tells us you go for all your checking your NPV, ROI and all, and come up with the business case. And agreements, if suppose complete project is on agreements, then those are very important inputs in developing a project charter. And output is project charter where higher level constraints are defined, where higher level schedule, higher level scope, higher level cost is defined, high level requirements are defined, what is required from the project, all high level. Remember, very important, all high level requirements are defined in project charter. All right. Now, in initiating process group only, once you have a project charter, you come up with your stakeholder register also. That is identifying all key stakeholders, all stakeholders in project, negative or positive, right? Stakeholders on the project. Plus, these two are outputs from initiating process group. You once you're done with these two processes, there are only two processes out of 47. There are only two processes in initiating process group. All right. Now, next process group is planning process group. Now, where do you do all the planning? So input will be obviously your project charter, which is basic document, which is having high level scope, high level schedule, cost. All those are defined. Constraints, risk are defined in project charter. Those are input to planning process group, where you go in detail planning, where you come up with your detailed planning, detailed scope. So you come up with your scope baseline. All baselines are created here. All plans, there are 13 plans, subsidiary plans in project management plan, which are developed, which are created here in planning process group. So which you're going to see in further slides, further lessons. So 13 plans are created, which is your job as a project manager. You need to create those plans. Plus there are baselines. Baselines are signed and approved by the sponsor, and all the complete project performance is measured against these baselines. So you need to develop that. So basically what you're doing in planning process group is you're doing the planning, right? Once you do the planning, then once you have your plan, that is project management plan. See here it is given, track through project management plan. That is the benchmark. Now you have to measure the complete performance according to this project management plan, where all baselines are there. So there are three baselines: schedule baseline. Sorry, we should start with scope baseline, schedule baseline, and cost baseline. Always remember, when you are mentioning about constraints, triple constraints, it should be first scope, then schedule, and then cost, right? It's not wrong if you say like cost, time, cost, schedule, and scope, but now when you are doing PMP, you have to be very, you should know what PMBOK says, right? So in project management plan, there are three baselines: scope baseline, schedule baseline, and cost baseline. And the complete performance on the project throughout the project is measured against these baseline, and we keep updating. See there, when we are executing our plan, there will be some changes required, right? So as and when with changes are required, we're going to there is a proper process for changes, how changes should be managed on the project. So that process needs to be followed. That is your change control process. That is again a proper process, which you're going to see maybe in later slides. So that process, when you follow all those changes, if they are approved, you need to go back, make changes in the baselines, update the baselines, and then those baselines will be measured, and the performance on the project will be measured against those baselines. All right. So you keep updating all plans and baselines throughout the project. All right. So next process group is executing process group, where you implement your plan. That is project management plan, and where output, see, all approved changes, where when you are updating your baseline, those approved changes will be implemented here in executing process group. Plus then output will be deliverable and WPD, very important outputs here in executing. So how much is done, how much is left, that you get, that data you get from executing process group, plus the deliverable, right? Now once you're done with this work, so executing process group, the processes performed to complete work defined in the project management plan to satisfy the project specifications. Once you're done with this, you go to monitoring and controlling. So monitoring and controlling basically is done throughout the project life cycle. You need to monitor and control. You need to keep an eye. You need to track. You need to review the work. You need to make changes. So monitoring is checking, tracking, and controlling is making changes. So monitoring and controlling is very important, which is done throughout the project life cycle. So that is your process group. Next process group, where deliverable will go to quality check first, and then once it is approved, once it is approved by quality check, then it goes to validation of scope, that is for acceptance from the customer. Next process after monitoring and controlling process group is closing. Once the customer has accepted the deliverable, it goes to closing process group as accepted deliverable. And see, once you are, as a project manager, once you are done with the project, you just cannot run away. Once you have the deliverable, you just cannot run away from the project. As per PMBOK, there is a proper process. You need to properly close the project. So for closing the project, deliverables are input to closing accepted, sorry, not deliverables, accepted deliverables are input to closing process group. And then finally you verify the scope, and then you finally obtain the customer acceptance and sign off, sorry, acceptance is already done, final sign off from the customer. And then finally you archive all the lessons learned, what were the mistakes, all lessons learned is archived, all documents are archived, and then finally you release the team. So there is a proper process for closing the project. All right, so these are the 5 process groups which you're going to go in detail when you go through all these knowledge areas. So any questions so far, guys? Just let me know. No? All right, so let's move to next slide then. See, all those 5 process group I explained in brief. So now enter phase or start the project. When you start the project, there are a few inputs like your okay. All right, Nareen Khan. So when you start the project or phase, there are a few inputs like business case, like agreements, and your SOW, which is provided by your customer or sponsor, which are input to initiating process group. Once you are done with your project charter and identifying stakeholders. Yeah, is there any question? Okay. Initiating process group. So I was explaining, sorry. In initiating process where you develop a project charter. Once you have your project charter, that is input to your planning process group. And can you see the planning process group executing? You can go back, you can make changes in these processes. That's the reason, the very important term which is used in PMBOK for PMP for project is they are iterative in nature. You can go back, you can make changes as required, and then update your baseline and come back and execute those changes, right? So they are iterative in nature. They are progressively elaborated. More you work on the project, more you come to know about issues and difficulties, and you make changes in the plan, right? So that is projects. They are progressively elaborated, plus they are iterative in nature. Once you're done with this, the output goes to your closing process group. That is your accepted deliverables, which is out to, if it's a multi-phase, you go the output from this phase is input to the next phase, and if it's a single phase project, that is the final deliverable, final product is an output. Any questions so far? That finishes your demo session. Just let me know if you have any question. Khan, Nareen.